Welcome. Today we are going to be diving into the conspiracy theory of the possible murder or suicide of frontman of Nirvana, Kurt Cobain. Today I'm joined by Sidney and Tyler.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
And by the name of the podcast, you can already tell, I'm Coco. Alright, let's jump into this discussion.
Okay, so the reason that it's a discussion about whether it's a suicide or a murder, because a lot of the facts about his suicide that was presented to the media is kind of hazy. You got the situation of where Courtney Love has recordings where it kind of sounds like she's planning to get the money that Kurt Cobain had. She could have possibly inherited millions of dollars from his death. Fine. And by the way, that's a phone. So, I mean, it sounds like to me, in my opinion, if somebody's sitting there planning to get money that Kurt Cobain had based off his death, then she would kind of have motive to move him out the way. What do you think?
I think that she knew from April 1st, 1994 that he was at least missing because she contacted this police officer or PI rather named Tom Grant, and he obviously had the recordings of when they had their encounters. So she knew he was missing from this time period. But she never really went to the cops about it.
And to clarify that, the April 1st is the last time that Courtney Love actually talked to him, and when it says that the last person that came to see him came before he escaped from, that's mine, escaped from the rehab that he went to for drugs.
And during this time, it was said that he had a shotgun registered under his friend's name, Dylan.
But that's speculation because we don't actually know. If you look into his interviews and stuff, you say, he says plenty of times that he doesn't own guns.
So. See, the reason that he would even have a gun to begin with is because he said to, in certain situation, have somebody who was around his house trying to break in. So I guess he would be getting a gun to protect his daughter. But since he had a possible suicide attempt via the media, he couldn't get a gun to begin with. So he had to get somebody else to register it.
I think the media was willing to accept what Courtney said at face value before actually diving in to what his friends and stuff said about him, and they were willing to believe that he was suicidal just based upon his lyrics of his songs.
Well, it was the lyrics of his songs, and plus the fact that there was a situation in Rome where he accidentally overdosed, and they kind of contorted it into the fact that he was depressed based off his lyrics and all this stuff, when the people around him actually said that he was a very happy person.
Even though doctors said it was an accident and there was no suicide involvement.
And when we watched this documentary that's called, what is it?
Soaked
in Bleach. They even go back and the private investigator is talking to the doctor from Rome. And he's like, no, this was an accident. I mean, before it even got to the media, both Kurt and Courtney were saying it was an accident.
So on April 8th, 1994, this is when his body was actually found. However, the night before, the investigator and one of Cobain's friends and Courtney's mutual friend were actually in the very place they found his body. They were in the house where they found his body, but due to the fact that they had this room, it was above and not very noticeable, they actually couldn't see his body or anything. So they never knew that he was dead, and when they did find him, it was days after.
You see, it was the day after of whenever because they went in there, and apparently Courtney Love was with their agent. Should have remembered her name. I think it's Rebecca something.
Rebecca. It does start with an L.
It's Rosemary.
Rosemary Lovell or some shit like that. But the point is, Courtney Love was around her, and apparently she had called the Dylan dude to say to check inside, the greenhouse. Now, whether that's the truth or speculation, that's what she told the private investigator, that it was actually told to check it.
However, Dylan did know that there was a greenhouse, and he pretended it didn't exist.
He was asked if there was any other place that Kurt could be, or the shotgun, and he's like, no. But he knew about the greenhouse, so why would he not check it?
So it would make sense for it to have been the truth that she said to check it, and he just didn't. So that means that he would have known about the death.
Yeah, and keep in mind that they were there a whole night before Kurt Cobain was found by the investigators who showed up after an electrician came to work on the house.
The electrician came and he found the body and he said that he saw the blood. Okay, but here's the thing: how long was Kurt missing? If he went missing in April 1st, was he like just hiding from Courtney because they are apparently going through a divorce at the time? See, they were going through a divorce. She seemed obsessive. She thought that he was cheating on her with somebody else, having an affair. So she wanted the money. He wanted her off his will. So even the Dylan guy says that they weren't really a perfect couple.
And that was mentioned by, I think it was Rosemary too, in a recording that Tom Grant actually had in Soaked in Bleach, that Cobain was actually looking to get divorced to Courtney Love. So she had motive.
So it all leads in my mind that she wanted money. She had people around her that could have helped be accessories to the murder. That way she didn't necessarily have to get her hands dirty, but she could have perpetuated the whole thing. She thought he was going to leave. She didn't want him to leave. She knew he had money. She was jealous that he had money and opportunities that she says that she could have had, but she didn't get those opportunities. So was she really offered, or was she just a jealous wife?
Also, they went in the house the night before and they found like letters from one of Kurt Cobain's other friends, in which he said, he was like bashing Cobain for not showing up and telling his wife where he was and stuff like that. And then Courtney's response to it was like, he already knew he was dead. Like, I don't understand how he could have possibly knew he was dead already unless she and he had some sort of plot to kill, Cobain.
Mm-hmm. And if Dylan knew that Kurt Cobain was in the greenhouse and he just refused to check there, that would also mean that he was in on it too. But if he was in on it, I don't see why he wouldn't tell the private investigator that he was suicidal. Because Courtney said that he was suicidal, so wouldn't it make sense?
The Dylan guy knew Kurt good too. Mm-hmm. And under the impression of the guy, they were really close friends. Kurt was basically his hookup for drugs and whatnot. They were good friends. Even the Dylan guy says that they weren't on the best of terms. He doesn't know why Kurt married Courtney. They weren't a good match. All this, that, and the other. Like he was on Kurt's side of, they weren't a dream couple. There were problems there, so there would be motive for her to do something. But like the podcast is about whether it was a suicide or a murder. And here's the other part to the whole murder thing. Like, okay, the whole suicide's explained that he shot himself in the head with a shotgun after he was doped up on heroin. He apparently was conscious enough after he took heroin, which, by the way, they found the dosage enough to kill 3 people. Like, the dosage to kill 3 people, yet he's competent enough to write a suicide note, and shoot himself with a gun.
And it said that he put the heroin kit back up neatly.
Apparently, he neatly put the heroin kit up. Now, I don't know about you, but it sounds kind of fishy to me that somebody doped up on 3 times the level to kill somebody would be competent enough to write a suicide note legibly where they could read it, because they were able to read it. Not only legibly do that, apparently stick like a stool in front of the door so nobody could get in there, which is discredited in the movie because even the first scene officer notices there's no stool in front of the door, but that's what the media perpetuated, that he was trying to lock himself in there. So how was a guy doped up that bad able to, set the whole shit up, like put all stuff cleanly, neatly back together, write his suicide note, and blow his head off all while he's really doped up? It just doesn't make sense to me.
And the shotgun shell landing on the other side of his body.
When we get into the evidence as well, the position of his body and then the position of the shotgun and way, like, if you have like it's like a death grip. If you're gripping something, it can't twist in your hand to a different position. So like when he supposedly shot himself, in the position he shot himself, the casing for the gun or the bullet or whatever,
The shell.
the
Yeah.
shell, yeah, that's what I was trying to look for. Thank you. It went on the opposite side of what it was supposed to exit. So it's not like lining up with the story that was portrayed. And then another thing that the media like perpetuated was the fact that his driver's license was like taken out and left on the floor. That was not actually. We found out through the movie that wasn't actually the case. That it was moved out of his wallet.
Yeah, the officer that first responded to it took it out to have evidence that it actually was Kurt Cobain. But another thing about that is it's a shotgun that he apparently blew his head off with, right?
Mhm.
Facing himself upside down. He apparently used his thumb while he was doped up to shoot himself in the head. And then, what's the thing about that is a shotgun would have completely destroyed his head. He wouldn't have been recognizable by anybody, but they say he recognized him. Like the gunshot wasn't as messy as a shotgun blast would be. So it kind of doesn't line up that he would have blew his head off with a shotgun.
And then the media inconsistencies with the whole situation, like the media seems to have like perpetuated a story of suicidal tendencies and blah blah blah, that mumbo jumbo. But if you go and ask his friends and his mother and stuff, they honestly say that they've never heard him say that he was suicidal, and that he even stated himself that his lyrics weren't meant to be taken seriously. Like he stated several times that he was just like writing lyrics at the last minute to throw together a song. Not to say that was a terrible thing to do. It's just that's the way he admittedly done it.
And he even said that some of his lyrics should be taken as literal as a joke should be taken. So.
And also, when he says in his own mind what he was coming to lyrics, it was just the first thing to pop into his mind. He just wrote it down. It wasn't like he premeditated every single one of his lyrics. So, I mean, for a guy that was apparently uber depressed, he didn't seem like, whenever you see him inside of documentaries or anything, he looks like he's actually a pretty happy guy. But then again, they say the most happy people are the people that commit suicide at the same time. Robin Williams, so on and so forth. I don't got that many fucking examples in my brain.
It just blows my mind though that through the whole case they have recordings of her and she's being so like nonchalant about the whole situation. Like she doesn't even the least bit sound like she's concerned about where he actually is.
And she doesn't want to go out and look for him.
And she did not want the guys that were, the private investigators to tell Kurt that it was her looking for him. So even if he was missing, she didn't want him to know that she was looking for him. I mean, also, you got to bring up the fact that he wanted her off of his will when he died. So does that mean that he knew she was going to kill him? Or that she was having somebody come for him? Or was that just something he did because they were going to get a divorce and he was just going to write her out,
Yeah, you talk about it and even like their mutual friend Rosemary was talking about how Love had told her that she was going to hire the best divorce lawyer, or was it Cobain?
It was Courtney Love. She was going to get the nastiest, dirtiest, those are the words that she used, nastiest, dirtiest divorce lawyer she could get, because she was going to get everything. She wanted the prenup annulled.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the person telling her didn't actually know she was being recorded at the time, so this is actually from her mouth.
Yeah, the private investigator recorded all of his calls. He's got like tapes upon tapes upon tapes of the whole situation. Nobody knew it was recording. I'm pretty sure of it, at least, because I'm pretty sure if she knew that he was recording, she wouldn't have freaked out when she finally did figure out he was recording the conversations. So my thing is, for a woman that was as vindictive as it sounds Courtney Love is, they got in arguments all the time. She accused him of cheating all the time. She appeared super controlling of the whole situation. It sounded like they were doped up the majority of the time, too. She wanted the prenup annulled because she heard that he was going to get her off the wheel. It sounds like she wanted to grab at his money. She knew how much money he had. If they were in a sour relationship, She has plenty of motive where she would have killed him.
And didn't it say at the end of the documentary that if they had gone through with the divorce, she wouldn't have got a large
No,
amount of money?
She wouldn't have got
it
that
said
much.
that she wouldn't have got anything.
But
Like,
since
well,
he
she would have got something.
conveniently
Not a lot.
died before that happened, she ended up with like billions, I think.
Yeah.
Up to billions in
Mhm.
royalties because Nirvana's music is still big. Nirvana
Yeah.
was a big band.
It's so classic. You listen to all their music, they're still up there. Like,
Yeah, they're still being played.
You go to amusement parks and you hear Nirvana. They were basically the music of the 90s.
I mean, they're like a cult classic. They caught all the '90s children and stuff.
It was so big that when Kurt actually died and people heard of his suicide, they were committing suicide themselves. I don't really agree with that, but that was how effective he was to the 90s group.
I mean, and you can still see traces of Nirvana, and they're still very big, and even the 2000s.
Mhm.
It's crazy the reach and influence.
Even their merch is still being bought by the younger generations.
I think Courtney Love was extremely jealous of Nirvana's success versus Hole's. I mean, she had, like, if you go back and you really do your research into this, she was not clean at all about this stuff. She wanted everything known. She wanted to know why he disappeared, why he didn't want her. It basically sounds like she wanted him gone. She wanted him erased. She was going to erase him because he didn't want her. He had all the things that she wanted, and she wasn't getting a penny of it because he made sure that at the start.
And I mean, I think also that she feared he was having an affair on her at one point. That she feared that he would leave her and stuff. And like the suicide letter, if you look at it, it's not very consistent throughout the suicide letter. So that's also a thing that's questionable. The writing and stuff on it was just so sloppy and inaccuracies throughout the whole letter. It honestly could have been written by 3 or 4 different people.
I got a question that just now popped into my mind. If she thought he was missing, why was it prevalent for them to search for the shotgun?
I really don't
If
honestly
they
know.
thought that he was suicidal, why would he not have the shotgun with him? Why would they just be searching for the shotgun alone? Also, she said there was notes under her pillow that they went back to
Yeah,
find,
they
and
proved that was wrong.
they weren't under the pillow. I believe they were actually found like in the bed or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't where she said it. There was extreme inconsistencies with everything that Courtney Love said. The private investigator she hired figured this out. I mean, it was somebody she hired. This wasn't somebody that was out to get her.
And keep in mind, he even said from day one he felt wrong, like she was deceiving him. She even told him why from day one about why she was hiring him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that's one of the reasons I feel the most unease about it, because he even says that she had secrets and she was manipulating the whole situation. And she got caught several times lying to the police and stuff. Like, she said there was letters under the pillows the day of when he killed himself, but then they went back and the letters weren't there the day after or whatever.
Yeah, and also she brings up the fact in this documentary, which is basically it includes so much information that it cannot be seen as incredible. She says herself that she had given the suicide note to officer, but she didn't know who. How do you not know who, and how did they not have the suicide note?
And she had more letters that were saying he was depressed and stuff, but somehow they just magically went.
Somehow
poof.
they're gone. Somehow they
Yeah,
disappear.
Because according to her, a detective that she does not know the name of told her to get rid of them because they'd be no good to her.
Which makes no sense. How would it not be good to have the notes? It's not going to incriminate her unless she kind of staged it.
It's just very convenient that she doesn't actually have them.
The reason that we even know about the suicide notes isn't because she gave it. She gave the guy, like the detective, the investigator, she gave him a copy of it that she had, and he tricked her into giving it to her.
Also, at the time, she actually released the suicide note to the press.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I feel like she tried to cover up a lot of it. And then, they found a lot of evidence, you know, that was very contradictory throughout the whole thing.
And it's also convenient how, towards the end, where the PI wanted to interrogate, the close friends, and her friend Callie just so happens to not be there anymore. He's in a completely different place.
And not only was it a completely different place, she changed the place he was several
Mhm.
times. It's like, oh, he's here. Oh, wait, he's in Colorado. No, he's in rehab. No, actually, he's with friends somewhere else. Like, really?
And then whenever the private investigator went to actually get facts from this Dylan guy, she had him doped up so that he couldn't actually answer questions.
And he ended up falling asleep.
It was clever manipulation on her part.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if she knew that he was going to incriminate her, because he was going to get interrogated, but why would you go and let him get high before he talks to the guy that
She knew what she was doing.
you knew that he was going to freaking investigate it. He told you he was there. He was going to talk to Dylan about the whole thing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it kind of seems like there's every reason to suspect this was not a suicide. Kurt Cobain was murdered, if not by the hands of Courtney Love, by the actions of Courtney Love. Somebody was told to get rid of him. Maybe it was Callie, and maybe that's why he wasn't there. Maybe it was Dylan, and that's why he was covering up his tracks, or maybe it was both.
Or maybe it was Courtney herself, but this is all, keep in mind, this is all speculation. We don't actually know if he really killed himself or if someone killed him.
I'm saying this right here.
But there's a lot of evidence pointing toward it.
If Kurt Cobain, and we know if he was into heroin and doing drugs, which he was, if he was into that, he would know the normal dosages to take. He wouldn't go and take 3 times. Maybe I'm thinking somebody had to probably have injected him with that much, and then whenever he was so doped out of his mind he couldn't do anything about it, maybe they shot him.
I think they probably used his own hands and stuff so like when he was grabbing the gun, that he was so doped up he didn't know what he was grabbing,
They probably gave him the shotgun, made him, basically coaxed him into. I don't know if they fingerprinted the shotgun to make sure it was somebody else or not, because
that's a very good question.
I don't think they did enough investigating into it.
Honestly, it's tragic how little investigating they did, because there's obvious evidence pointing toward.
It seems like they probably should have fingerprinted that gun to see, because I don't even know if it was a shotgun. Maybe they just gave him the shotgun, planted the shotgun shell after it had already been shot. Maybe he tested it out after he got it with the Dylan guy. Dylan guy goes and he grabs the shotgun shell, places it conveniently in the crime scene, because if he blew his head off with a shotgun, there'd be more missing than what they say is there, which they won't release the pictures, so we haven't seen the picture.
Obviously I'm not going to take everything at face value, because they're pretty sure to rush in and hide those pictures for some reason. It makes no sense why almost how many years later? So many years later.
This is at least 25 years ago.
Yeah, this is 25 years ago. There's no reason to not release the pictures by now at this point if the evidence does not prove that they're contradicting themselves.
And even the Seattle Police Department, or old chief, said if he was still chief there, he would reopen the case. It's got that much evidence behind it that it shouldn't be reevaluated. Courtney Love probably did murder Kurt Cobain, in my opinion. Not by her hand, probably, but she had somebody set it up. That's my opinion on the whole thing.
I'm going to say, even if, I'm not 100% sure what happened, but I think she might have actually played a key role in it. I'm still not going to say for a fact that I know what happened. It's just my opinion, too.
We're stating opinions, though. In my opinion, I think there's enough evidence and enough differences in the situation to know that this wasn't a suicide. This was a murder. And if it wasn't Courtney Love, somebody had a hand in it. Because somebody that doped up, and there's proof that he was that doped up. They actually did the toxicology and everything. He was that doped up. He could not have shot himself.
And they actually tried to discredit the theory that he was so doped up he couldn't do it by giving methadone to somebody, which is not the same drug. The way it's not used the same way.
Methadone is ingested, and it'll take a little bit longer, is what we're saying. It'd take a little bit longer for them to actually have the feeling for methadone. So they tested it and said somebody that had twice the limit could stand on one leg competent after they took methadone. But this is directly in your bloodstream with heroin.
So it's going directly to your brain and all your vital organs and stuff. It would affect you faster. So I don't find that evidence to be empirical evidence that could prove beyond a shadow of reasonable doubt that he was able to hold that gun and shoot himself.
I don't know about y'all two, but I believe even if there wasn't a gun involved, he would have died. He probably
Yeah.
he probably was dead before he was even shot, to be honest. Because that much black tar heroin straight to you, you probably pass out right then, have the convulsions, and die. Because that was like 3 times the lethal dose. So he's gone.
And I think that, his suicide, looking back on it, is physically impossible with the way it's all set up. So I think the cops should have realized that a lot better unless they were trying to cover something up. Because taking that much drugs and then, having the note and having it all put together afterwards and then just so happen to have enough strength to pull a trigger, it's not physically possible. So it doesn't make any sense.
My view is it's 2019. It's been 25 years at least since this has all happened. Seattle, they need to release these photos because even if it shows contradictory evidence and stuff, or it doesn't, we need proof. It needs to be reopened because their daughter is paying the price for whatever happened all those years ago. She's gonna continue thinking, maybe, I don't know if she thinks this or not, but I mean, if she does, she's thinking her dad committed
It's kind
suicide.
of heavy to weigh on you that your dad possibly committed suicide. 2019, the year of crime documentaries. We need to reopen this. We need to re-examine it. It needs to be seen because there is too much evidence saying Kurt Cobain did not do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And speaking of the suicides, it was mentioned in the documentary that wasn't it Courtney that said that there was a bunch of suicides in Kurt's family, which turned out to not be true.
Yeah,
at
she
all.
was very contradictory about that.
Yeah, even his friends, his close friends from childhood, who one of them he lived with for a whole entire year, said that didn't happen. His grandpa, which is one of the things that Courtney Love said, his grandpa, I think it was his uncle or his great uncle and his grandpa apparently killed themselves. Whenever his grandpa, I think it was his grandpa,
one of them
accidentally dropped their gun in a bar, shot himself, asked if everybody was okay, and then he fell over dead. That's not suicide. That's
and then
an accident.
one got drunk and fell downstairs.
One got drunk, fell downstairs.
It's not actually suicide.
Those are not suicide.
Both of those are accidental deaths.
There was definitely caught that she was lying on that. Several situations called that she's lying. And also, going back to things that could be a lie, let's talk about how the suicide note was like, it looked like it was copy and paste letters from something that was already wrote before.
It looks like they took bits and pieces of his past notes and things like that and just combined them together and then wrote something really stereotypical at the end.
And then if you look at the last 4 lines, they don't even match the handwriting on the other.
Yeah, the other one looks like it's like a big old piece of talking about his music and everything. But if I'm thinking about a suicide note, somebody saying, "I'm sorry, this world's better without me. I mean, I was such a bad place. Life sucks. Da da da. I'm sorry, I'm doing this. Da 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 da." That would be my thought about a suicide note. Not talking about how my music impacted everybody.
And then, even Rosemary goes back to say that was a forgery right away whenever she's seen it,
Yeah, Rosemary is not just a run-of-the-mill person. That was both of their agents.
Yeah, so she would know.
She was very close to both of them, and she knew a lot more than most people did.
So she definitely knew it wasn't Kurt Cobain writing that message. It wouldn't be something that he would have wrote. So that definitely raises red flags and everything to me. I don't know about y'all, but
I think it was a murder. So
at the end of the day, I think it was honestly a murder too.
I can't see it being a suicide.
And everybody has their own opinion about it. Everybody has the right to look this up and should look this up if you're watching this video. You definitely should do the research for yourself.
Don't take our word for it. Look up and investigate yourself. Never take anything at face value because that's how sheeps become sheeps. And,
be a shepherd, not a sheep.
Be a shepherd, not a sheep. I'm sorry. That's what I was trying to say.
Lead your own pack. Don't follow the pack.
Thanks for the save. I'm belly flopping over here.
But the whole conspiracy would not be a conspiracy if it was just flat out fact. You always have to question everything.
Yeah. I think it's dumb to take anything at face value. you really need to know the evidence of stuff
Yeah,
before you say
and
anything.
before I forget, this is another thing. Why would Kurt Cobain, if he was going to tragically murder himself, talk about how he wanted to eventually fade from Nirvana and become an acoustic artist with an acoustic guitar?
Yeah, he apparently had this plan in the future, be old and be sitting on a stage playing guitar and not make a joke out of it. Like, he had a plan set up, so why would he want to kill himself?
You don't necessarily make plans to be something more and then just flat out kill yourself. Well, I at least wouldn't think so. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be like,
Yeah.
I got this big thing. But it's not necessarily where you couldn't do that. Like, you could make plans and then somehow get altered, depressed, and do something seriously bad. But in my opinion, like I've said probably 15 times now, this was a murder.
Yeah, I just think it was a murder. I don't think it's possible for it to have been a suicide. And I think that the cops should have looked into it a lot better than they did.
I think anyone looking back on this now can see that it's not a suicide because it doesn't make any realistic sense that it would be a suicide. However, everyone's entitled to their own beliefs at the end of the day. So I say just go and investigate it for yourself and, leave a comment under the video and tell us what you think and your opinions. Thank you for listening to us. And this is goodbye for now.